Okay, well, this might be a long little ramble. I'm putting around, exercising my feet. Um, Reasons why I'm no longer an atheist. Um, Unlike anybody else, I shouldn't say anybody else, but most people, I rarely give percentages, but 99% of religious people, creationists or theists, and I think that there's a difference between those two. Um, the reason why I'm a theist now has to do with personal experience, um, with that which would be considered abnormal or paranormal, metaphysical, alien, uh, spiritual, in a literal sense of seeing spirit. So when I started on YouTube in 2007, I was a secular atheist and had all of the notions about how reality is put together with a coherence in the usage of the word reality in terms of being empirical, ostensible. Um, anyway, so in late 2007, sitting at my drawing table, drawing a theater mask, the sad face and the happy face, I looked up and there was a basketball-sized orb with this infinity belt moving through the center of it. And it was white and a little golden and translucent, and it moved about a foot off of my... Sorry, there's a helicopter going overhead, or a plane. It moved across my living room and paused for probably 5 seconds, long enough to really stare at it, really get an idea of it, and then it went right through the wall. And that was like a fissure or a zipper right through my reality. I had never seen anything, no logic or reason or rationale could explain that. It still doesn't explain it. But 20 minutes later, after the event, after my girlfriend, I said, "Did you see that?" She's like, "Did you just see an orb?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I did too." And I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she said, "Because I thought you would think I was crazy." And it was a weird conversation. So both of us saw that. Um, I couldn't explain it. I still can't explain it. But 20 minutes later, she gets a phone call from her dad saying that his dad, her grandfather, had just died. So immediately she associated the orb with him. That was my granddad coming to visit me. I had a hard time not associating it, but I separated it out. Okay, so that's example number one. Then I break up with the girlfriend. A couple years go by. It's March of 2010, and I'm thinking about geometry. I'm thinking about sacred geometry and triangles. I didn't consider it sacred geometry, but hyperbolas, triangles, inverted triangles, stars of David, pentagrams, how they fit together, how they move into one another. Um, and anyway, I went through a certain ceremony in my living room, kind of meandering about these shapes and thinking about them. And I dropped a light bulb on a piece of paper and it broke. And from the light bulb came this head, this white head, floating head, that guided me. It went and moved to my left side and it guided me down the hallway. Right? I end up getting on my roof that night, and when I was on my roof, I saw the most amazing Jacob's ladder. I called it Jacob's ladder because it's the only time I've ever seen a ladder in the sky made out of clouds. Now, I don't consider seeing natural clouds to be a phenomenon, a fantastic phenomenon. I don't consider that. The ghost, I consider that to be a fantastic phenomenon. The orb, I consider that to be a fantastic phenomenon. It leads me to the roof. There's a ladder made out of clouds. There's a star that's bouncing underneath this other star. There's a triangle on the roof that's indicating to me that I need to attempt to leap at this ladder. Instead of leaping, I go back down into my condo. I feel guilt. I rise up again. And I end up leaping off the roof towards a star, 2 stories, crash my feet on the ground, totally blow out my feet, blow out my spine. Okay, so that's experience number 2. Number 3, I've recovered, I've gotten out of the nursing home, I'm floating around here. By floating, I mean I'm hanging out in my apartment. And all of a sudden, the radio, the internet, starts talking to me directly, right? I think I'm going mad. I think I'm going crazy. But it was like that scene in The Game with Michael Douglas where the TV starts addressing him particularly. That started happening to me. Before I know it, I'm being guided to hop in my car and drive north. I start driving north all the way up to the Canadian border. I get turned around at the Canadian border. On my way up there, late at night, hovering above the road, is this red starry jewel with these electric tentacles hovering over the highway. Like I said, it's very, very red, and it looked like this electric jellyfish. It didn't pulse backward and forward, but it pulsed like this instead of like this. And it hovered above the highway, and it scared me. I'd never seen anything like that besides the orb. That was real. I would consider it as real as a bag of chips. I'd consider it as real and trusted it with a certainty that I trust my own hands. So because of that event, because of the orb, I've had 2 other events that have happened to me where like a ghostly apparition comes out of my chest when I'm driving and I feel like I'm being taken over. It stitches a name of my ex-girlfriend on this glowing heart coming out of my chest. Like there's a stitching going on. I'm down in Vegas. I have broken feet, but I'm guided to run. I'm guided to run. So I can't run, but I kind of hobbly jog on these broken, painful feet. And another ghost, a black ghost, runs up to my left. And he has no feet, but he has arms. And he's asking if I want to be hit down, telling me I better keep running or I'm going to get hit down. All of these events led to a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But it doesn't matter. To me, from 2007 to 2012, I still have these particular events that happen every now and again that I can't explain, where the reality sort of flattens. Because of these personal experiences that I've had, that have driven me to crush my body, that have driven me to drive places, that have scared me from my soul outward or surprised me because I cannot explain them with reason. Not like a reflection of the retina, right? Not an after image of a retina. Not some electrical phenomenon, some lightning storm. I know what lightning is. I know everything that everybody else knows about their reality. And to see these things shocked me as much as I believe anybody would be shocked by them. Now, because of these personal experiences, I have no other means of rationally thinking about them other than there is some breach in the reality that I understand. There's some alien communication. If there's aliens or there's some other power, there's some other events that are going on that exceed logic, that exceed rationality. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And I can be religious. I read religious texts, going through the Quran now, Book of Mormon, Bible, Quran, East Indian philosophies. I don't know why that eludes me right now. Siddhartha. Vedics. Been to Egypt. Read a lot about Egyptian gods. That was in earlier 2007, which I felt like that was playing a role on things. So, anyway, because of these events, it shocked me from the inside out. I didn't know how to go from a secular atheist rationale to incorporating these things that I couldn't explain. And so I am left to kind of just leave them with it's unexplainable, but the mere fact that they occurred and that they occurred outside of a dream state left me feeling like reality itself was a dream state, a matrix, an electrical phenomenon itself that occasionally has these breaches, and then realizing, thinking everybody's in on this game, everybody knows everything about me, feeling like that, feeling completely transparent. I didn't know who to separate myself from in terms of their vision and their outlook and their perspective on the world. Anyway, what my point is that anytime I try to utilize rationality in order to justify and validate these experiences, I'm left with considerations of something broader than our current knowledge set, our current paradigm, science's current paradigm. It leaves me to think of UFOs, paranormal activity, alien activity. It leads me to believe in all of these things. Because of that, I've imagined multiple gods. I've heard sounds, and here goes the schizophrenia thing, sounds, voices talking to me that I attributed to channeling. I was channeling information from some other source. Anyway, so this totally pulled the blanket out from underneath my atheism. It didn't apply it. It didn't have me attaching things to religious texts. But at the same time, all of the justifications of personal experience that all these atheists say there's no evidence of these things. I've had evidence. I've had these experiences. I've experienced them. It's converted me. It's changed me. If you're an atheist and you'd like to combat somebody else's personal experience, I'd like to hear your arguments for why that's bogus. And if the best you can have is, well, you're schizophrenic, then I still say that doesn't change the fact that these occurred. It doesn't change the fact that I saw some weird phenomenon with the orb with another person. And then to consider all of the stories. If you type in celebrity ghost stories and you watch several hours, tape upon tape upon tape, you're going to hear ghost stories. You're going to hear things like I'm mentioning coming from other people. It doesn't have to be even celebrity ghost stories. If you type in UFOs or sacred geometry or the paranormal, you're going to get something. You're going to get something that people attest to. I thought I was alone. I really did. And then I started to find other people that have seen lights, ghosts, orbs, other things that cannot be explained. Anyway, so if you type in all those things and you watch these ghost stories, you're going to find so many people that believe in something beyond our current understanding. People that are changed from skepticism to, at the very least, being inquisitive and open to more possibilities. I mean, you got people that claim they've seen all sorts of things, from aliens to spaceships to Bigfoot. Now, this is not covered. See, okay. So now Chapter 2, Beyond Atheism, has to do with the idea of ontology and epistemology. The occurrence of these things lie empirically, ostensibly, factually, within quote-unquote reality, but that are unexplained, beyond our knowledge set. There's still phenomenon that are occurring, so it's an ontology. They're there. I even thought Heidegger's Dasein was referring to one of these orbs, an actual orb that's traveling through time. That's how I read Being in Time. and then I detached from that vantage point. Anyway, so as far as my knowledge set, the epistemology runs shallow relative to the ontology, where epistemology had always, in my past, been greater than ontology. But if people believe in ontology, but they try to exclude epiphenomenon, layered phenomenon, other secondary phenomenon like language itself, or the paranormal, I'll push that into the epiphenomenological, to say there's a strata of things that are occurring that are disconnected from materialism, meaning they can all be justified in materialism. So this brings me down to this notion of materialism and information theory, that material, that everything can be justified as an information set, and by utilizing the information theory, it doesn't exclude these phenomena that I've experienced. It includes them because it still shows if it's occurring, whether or not I'm imagining this reality, which is a weird thing to say, or whether or not this is still the set, the ground, the certainty that I need, that I work from, you know, that I can touch and feel and sense and I wake up to every day. If the information itself allows for a breach in this reality, then I can still say that it's occurring due to materialistic phenomena, that the orb itself or this starry jewel, this red jellyfish jewel, are phenomena that take place in a material world. They're still, like, they're happening with a, like, at their, in other words, the very most atomic description would still allow for them to be described as electric phenomenon or information-based phenomena, and that they're occurring in reality or in the material world. And because of that, a materialistic explanation is, well, it's butted up against the paradigm. The paradigm of the limits of science and the limits of physics are butted up against the description that I'm trying to use. But basically I'm trying to say that all these phenomena still allow for an information theory-based notion, even though I think it's absurd to, I think everything should be reduced down to the individual and the individual organism and the individual solipsistic experience. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this right now. I'm kind of scrambled. I've been scrambled since I started this chapter 2 nonsense. Anyway, these events have undermined all of my considerations. They pulled the carpet out from underneath all of my philosophical considerations that I held prior to the happenings of these happenings. I have a hard time saying it's the creator or it's God. I'm more at ease of saying my soul and my very materialistic being is transparent. I can read signs into the sounds of my gut squishing or the sensation of my gut switching or the beeps of my coffee maker. I can read information in any event that I'm experiencing, and I can pull it all together into one monistic view of the universe. One yeah, a complete monism, a complete solipsism where everything and every event and every happening happens specifically for the individual consciousness. If you get to that mode of thinking and you believe everything is real, meaning you don't exclude epiphenomenon, you don't exclude metaphysics, you don't exclude the paranormal, you don't exclude notions of creationism, you don't exclude how words are put together, but instead you try to extract and cut up and blend and morph the data and the information that's around you. You notice where your focal points are. And so if you see a string of words, a sentence of words, one word may be in focus where the rest of them are not. And then you move your eye, instead of left to right, you might move it downward and see another sentence and extract another word. And cross-section and crosshatch through your reality. Start reading the very seams and the very angles of your reality. By doing this, there's still a substrata of meaning that can come about, but you notice where your consciousness is. You start to delineate around your consciousness as opposed to around rationality. You allow an emotional read of your environment, an intuitive grasping. These are reasons why I'm not an atheist anymore. Everything that I've explained. There's simply, and quite frankly, more. There's more phenomena in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in your philosophy. You get people who, instead of monizing, they create demarcation points. They segment off and focus on rudimentary sets. In one case, you have somebody saying it's index, icon, and symbol. In another case on the tubes, you get somebody saying cannibalism and addiction and reproduction and consumption. If you reduced everything to symbol in the index, icon, symbol, if everything became symbol, as if these three had a primacy and a hierarchy and they all collapsed into one, everything would collapse into symbol, just data, the data that you're apprehending. And it wouldn't be an icon because the next moment, the rhyme, the rhythm, wouldn't be necessary. It would come, but it wouldn't be necessary. And the index would be, it's in a form of an epistemology, an ostension. And so there's an extra operation that has to go on in the mind in order to note or denote that one thing is an epistemology, or that it's an index. Consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, addiction. Well, cannibalism is reduced into consumption. Both of those two, like addiction seems to be a driving force. It's akin to will. So I believe that to consume, you have to have a desire to consume. So that would fall into consumption, and cannibalism would fall into addiction. Then reproduction is also a practice. All of these are practices of animation, so all four of these just fall into the process of animation. If you look up a definition of life, you find that life is but an animation. You also have people that talk about imposition, and they say that imposition is I'm at my feet's wit's end. I gotta sit down. These people that say life is an imposition, that's a connotative but not a denotative proposition. Denotation would just show a reproduction process, a coming about, an importing. The connotation is applied to that, which would be considered a connotative process. So one is connoting imposition by placing a value on top of it. So this is an extra process of the mind. This is another process that the mind has to go through. Anyway, I find the battle interesting between atheists and theists. But I rarely hear theists saying that they're theists because of personal experience, and not saying that, you know, it has to do with the Bible or it has to do with objective morality, or the myriad of other ideas that creationists have. I'm really reluctant to post this video, by the way. I've been reluctant for years to speak about any of these things that have happened because it's maddening. It's absolutely maddening. And to gather and garner feedback from other individuals trying to hoop jump and justify my personal experience is something, I mean, I'm open to it, but the considerations fall shy and short. I'm as rational, or can be as rational, and use rational operations as well as the next person. And there's nothing in physics or science, to my knowledge, that explains this. I even wrote to a quantum physicist in Stanford asking about orbs and the possibility of them. To no avail. Wanting to know what governments might be up to. Anyway, if one's a serious philosopher and they want to take in consideration of ontological happenings, and they want to include instead of discluding phenomena, if they really want to take it seriously, they have to look at the claims of many, many people. They have to look at those claims, whether they've experienced those or not. I imagine there's a lot of people that have personal experiences or prayer experiences or feelings, and that they're guided by their feelings in order to justify their theism. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. But not a lot of them have objective extraordinary experiences in order to justify their testimony about their religion. God, I can't publish this. You guys will think I am mad. I'm not certain what else to say, to be honest. Yeah, some people will reduce their identity to their ethnicity instead of reducing it even further down to the very individual that's occurring in the space and time, the cultural, environmental atmosphere that they were raised and that they currently exist in. They would rather reduce to their ethnicity. So this is why racial arguments are not soulful. They're not atomic arguments. I've been warring for years between epistemology and ontology and what's predominant over what. Whether or not it's all a data matrix epistemology or whether or not the ontology of what's occurring needs to be described and it's obviously predominant. But I've also fought between hierarchies and egalitarianism or flatness, where I hope for a society that's egalitarian, and yet it appears that at the very root structure of our language there's hierarchies because we read left to right, because there is a beginning of the sentence that takes form before the rest of the sentence takes form. There's a hierarchy in the language, so there's a hierarchy, and I don't mean a hierarchy based on who's better than whom, but more about established institutional positions that people slide into that form fit to these positionings, and that these institutions are what kind of dominate and control and define civilization as civilization, and how slowly these hierarchical pyramids are being picked apart. I wonder about what the hope is. At what point can hierarchies let their dreams go and become egalitarian, create a cube instead of a triangle, create a sphere instead of a pyramid? Anyway, these are just thoughts on my mind. Yeah, it's maddening. It's maddening. I think I'll keep this video private until this other event happens. Okay. Okay, anyway. That is all.